Pat Bradley joining us on the line right now. You know PB, one of the all-time Razorbacks, SEC Network basketball analyst, all-around fun guy. PB, thanks for coming on. How are you?
My man, Bill. Doing good, brother. How about yourself?
Good. Hey, we had Paul Biancardi on with us a couple of weeks ago, and he took credit, or tried to take credit, for you coming to Arkansas because he couldn't get you to go to Boston College. Either that or he said he didn't recruit you to Boston College. But Coach Biancardi took the credit for you coming to the Razorbacks, man.
That's more like it. He was in – it's funny how things tend to work out for the best because really I get recruited by Boston College or UMass when Calipari was at UMass at the time. And other school, Northeastern, Boston University. So I can be honest, if there was a scholarship there, I probably would have stayed closer to home. But there's no way it would have worked out as good as it did for me. So it's just funny how things do kind of work out. So maybe he does get a little credit for it.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. We'll give him a little bit of credit.
Yeah.
Hey, we got a question from a listener here, and I wanted to get to this before we touched on some of the other stuff, because I think we also brought this up around the same week. I think your three-point shooting percentage is right there, if not a little bit higher, than Al Dillard. And I hear a lot of people say they would like to see a shooting contest between you and Alex Dillard from your best years. Who do you think, and I guess we have to get Al Dillard to ask him this question at some point, be equal opportunity, who would win that shooting contest?
Well, you're talking about one of the best of all of the best. So I know he would say he would win, so I have to say that I would. Although there's few guys really that can destroy. The one thing that I think Al Dillard had, he had so much, he had guts to shoot it 10 feet behind the three-point line. I mean, He was one of the few guys that really when he went into that zone, there was no shot that didn't look makeable to him. You know, because there's a lot of really good shooters, a lot of great shooters, but they have to be in their comfort zone. Depending on the side of the floor or just in rhythm. And I think Al, even to this day, he just felt everything was in his rhythm. You know what I'm saying? It's unbelievable to watch that guy shoot, man. And there was a few, people do talk about obviously Marvin Delph, one of the great shooters. Rodney Clark, Scotty Thurman, of course, Al Dillard. But there's a few other guys out there, too, that go under the radar that were absolute snipers that I'm sure, many people probably want to throw a few other names in there, too. Well, so we should do. Maybe we'll have a horse contest on video.
Hey, I think this sounds like something that you could do. Everyone's doing Zoom now. ESPN broadcast horse. Why not? This can actually happen. There was some discussion, and I'll when things are finalized, I'll let you know. But there was some discussion about that, whether it be some sort of shooting competition with other players and other Arcans, and so we'll see if that one progresses. Well, if you need an announcer for it, you know one right here. There's a couple of really good shooters that have declared for the draft out of Arkansas, Isaiah Joe and Mason Jones. Mason signed with the agent over the weekend, CAA, so we know he's not coming back. I find that not to be a surprise at all. I guess I'd be surprised if Mason goes in the draft, but I got to be honest, Pat. When you watched him this last year and his creativity of the ability to score in a multitude of ways, I'd be surprised if Mason doesn't find himself in the league at some point. What do you think?
I absolutely think he will be, because he is a guy, his game, first of all, we've seen him really develop. When he got, and he was a heck of a player when he got on campus. We know the story of him being under-recruited and sort of just kind of things started clicking for him. And some guys are like that. Some guys are late bloomers. But we got a chance to watch his game evolve. And the thing I love about his game
is that he can score a variety of ways. You have a lot of guys who can flat out shoot it, no doubt about it. Some guys are so athletic they can get to the rim. But with the beauty of his game is he also gets to the free throw line. So that right there shows you he understands how to score. Like if his shot's not falling, he can do other things. We know that he's smart enough of a player where he can command a double team. And what does that mean? When you're playing with a guy who knows how to command a double team, that means now we're playing 4-on-3 because two guys got to cover one. So he makes his teammates better in that way. And it's going to be I'm not surprised that he's not, coming back. And it's funny how you know when guys are ready to leave. And yes, he may not get drafted, but that doesn't mean it's not the right choice. I think he mentally was ready to move on. And so, yeah, it may be a couple of years. It may be just the right situation where an NBA team needs him. But I do think he's going to end up being on a NBA bench, on an NBA roster, and playing in NBA games. Hopefully sooner than later. But, like I said, I think he's watching his progression. I think he understands the game and how to get himself in that position.
Talking to Pat Bradley here on Halftime. Pat, want to transition over to the other piece of the puzzle that we're kind of awaiting to see if he's going to stay in the draft or come back, and that's Isaiah Joe. And I think the one thing about him, we all know that he can shoot, but is there other areas that he could try to improve on if he were to come back for Arkansas for his senior year?
Yeah, and Matt, that was one thing that Coach Musselman, before the season, addressed with Isaiah Joe, basically encouraging him to attack the rim more. And I think the way Coach Musselman actually put it was he had said, I want to see him dunk more. I want more dunks. And I know, hey, they're only worth 2 points, same as a layup. But from a mental standpoint, that matters. And it shows NBA teams that you're aggressive, attacking the rim, finishing with authority, finishing strong around the rim. So the one thing that hurt him was that injury, because he sat out and without the ability to go and visit teams right now, to work out for teams, without the ability to go to the NBA combine that they have in Chicago, without those things, there's probably a little bit more question marks. He's still obviously going to have to, have to put on weight and strength, but I'm sure they're going to look at his frame and, want to make sure that it's going to be healthy for 82-game season. So I think he probably would benefit from coming back. Now it'd be his team, hand him the ball, and he sort of could take over like what Mason Jones did, how Mason Jones took over at times. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did come back. And again, that's for him probably the best decision. But there are so many opportunities, whether it be the G League or going overseas, that he can't make the wrong decision. And that, with everything we're going through now, too, it may be the safest thing for him to come back to school, because who knows if you can go over to Europe and play or Asia or other places outside of the United States.
Let's assume, for the sake of this question, that he comes back and the team next year is loaded with shooters. It's loaded with size. Eric Musselman addressed the two biggest areas of concern that you personally mentioned on broadcast, and anybody at the SEC Network talked about, was size and shooting. And next year, if Isaiah Joe comes back with the recruiting class that's coming in, the transfers that are coming in, is Arkansas could you argue that Arkansas could be the team to beat next season, or do we still need to watch out for Kentucky?
Yeah, well, Kentucky's obviously got an absolute studs coming in. I think they were the number one recruiting class. Again, they're freshmen, right? They're always young. That's the advantage that Tennessee, who's bringing in a top 10 class. Tennessee's got guys that played a bunch of minutes this past year that are sophomores, going to be juniors. And so I would say Tennessee, Kentucky, Auburn is bringing in some studs, and they get a few left over from last year. So in year two of Coach Muss, having this discussion is unreal. Every Hog fan should be absolutely pumped that in year 2 we already can see competing for the SEC. I don't want to prematurely say, because there's still going to be some question marks, right? I mean, we know Connor Vanover can compete on the Division I level. We saw what he did at Cal for his 1 year. But he's coming off a year he hadn't played. You know, you get 4 freshmen. As much as we like to look at the stars after the names, you just don't know until you put the lights on in Bud Walton and you tip it up, and we don't know what kind of a player you really get. And you think you do. So there's still those question marks. That's why it's so key for Isaiah to come back, because he's done it on the highest level, and you know you can depend on that. And hopefully those guys will turn out to be what we think they are. But we just got to wait and see.
Pat, I want to close you out with a hypothetical here, okay? I want to take the 1998 Pat Bradley. I want to transport him to 2022 as a shooting guard for the Arkansas Razorbacks, who is allowed to now profit off of his name, image, and likeness. Would you be able to do you think you'd be able to profit off of that in today's age? Would you try to take advantage of that? Do you think this is something that would take your focus off of the other things that are supposed to be important for a student athlete, classes and winning games?
Yeah, you know what I think? This helps. It helps to invest in yourself. So, like when I was in college, or now, let's say, I mean, if I was a college athlete, I would look for ways to invest in myself. So it wouldn't be me knocking on the car dealership and say, hey, can I do commercials for you? It would be, in this age, athletes are influencers. College athletes are influencers. What kind of things you wear, others are going to wear. And that's, I think, what is going to be the most important thing. And in a way, Phil, this is going to help everybody, because what you're going to do, you're going to get these 18, 19, 20-year-old student athletes a first-class education on how to be a better citizen, be a more responsible person, because now you are developing an image. You're understanding the business world. This is like the greatest education anybody could ever ask for. So I would influence it myself, whether it be, Instagram now is in Twitter and Facebook. You can promote so many different things for others, and that's probably the direction I would go. But I think it's a win-win for everybody. I don't think this is going to distract. I mean, there's so many things to distract college athletes out there already, and they figure out. Coaches figure out a way to bring them back down to earth, because there's one thing that every player wants, and the coach is the only one that controls it, and it's minutes. Every player wants minutes. So
it's always the way the coaches are able to influence decisions by players, that's for sure. Pat, we're up against it. We'll leave it there. I appreciate talking with you, as always. Stay safe.
All right, brother. You guys be safe, man.
Absolutely. One and only Pat Bradley, the shooter, joining us here on Halftime. I tell you what, I think, Maddie, you know Pat pretty well. I think Pat Bradley could have made himself a pretty penny if he was able to sell that name, image, and likeness. And there might have even been some spots that were open, 1 in the morning that he could have gone to and sold name, image, and likeness to. That would have been a lot of fun to be Pat Bradley's agent. If they would have been allowed to do that. All right, we'll close out the show. Cherry on the top is 3 up, 3 down. That's next.